I'm an online college professor, so believe me when I say that some students are going to pass their classes and succeed and graduate, and some are not. It's inevitable. Every semester, 2 or 3 students start out strong. They're all enthusiasm. This is going to be great. And then they submit a couple of assignments, but by like the 4th week, they just disappear. They fall behind on something. Something in life happens. They get discouraged. It's not what they thought it would be. And they just quit. But I want you guys to be the students who pass their online college courses. So I got together with my online college professor buddies to get you 7 strategies and things to remember so that you actually finish what you start out to do. Have you ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Basically, this was a research study done by Dunning and Kruger to assess how people assess themselves. So they took a bunch of college students and they asked them, how funny do you think you are? And how good are you at grammar? As well as a couple of other things. And then they actually tested them on these things to see how good the students actually were. It turned out that the students who weren't very good and scored kind of low all thought that they were better than they turned out to be. The students who scored high had all guessed that they were worse than they were going to be. What's the moral of the story? Well, if you think you're really smart and that you know everything, chances are good that you're one of the people who doesn't know everything. And that leads to a lot of online college students starting their course feeling super confident.
This is going to be a breeze. I don't need to revise my paper. I don't need to read all the homework.
And then they find out that they didn't know as much as they knew. They fail a paper, they get a low score on a quiz, the homework kicks their butt, and at the end of the day, they don't say, oh, how can I learn and be better? They say,
well, the professor was being too harsh, or the professor doesn't know what he's talking about, or, I actually heard about this before, and I'm actually right.
I deal with students like this all the time, and they're more likely to fail, more likely to get worse grades, and more likely to have a bad time. So my advice to you is to stay humble and ask yourself, what can I learn? My colleague, Professor Emily, said, ask questions if you're confused. Don't just submit assignments if you're uncertain of the instructions. I get it. Sending emails, asking questions, calling on the phone, stuff like that, it can be intimidating. It can take a lot of time. Sometimes your professor doesn't get back to you, so you're like, why even bother? But it's really worth it to make sure that you're not spending a lot of time going in the wrong direction. I have a lot of students who are really smart and they go and create this amazing paper and then they get a C on it and they're like, what happened? And I say, well, you wrote a really good paper, but that's not what the instructions were asking for. Your professor wants to help and wants to answer questions. Okay, there might be a couple that are grumpy or don't check their emails. But if you don't understand or you're confused, please ask. Depending on your school, all of your assignments are going to be due on certain days of the week, and you'll get announcements with instructions from your professors on certain days of the week. At one of the schools that I teach at, that's Monday. So everybody knows that Monday night assignments are due, and that gives everybody time to work on their homework over the weekend. So if you went to that school, you'd know, okay, Tuesday morning, I should kind of get an understanding of what my assignments are for the week, what I need to do. Through the week, I can start doing some of the reading, maybe draft a paper, and then on the weekend, it's time to bust out the work, do a bunch of studying, take the test, and finish writing the paper. And that's called getting into a rhythm, knowing that all right, to be done by this point, I need to start on this day. This kind of day is good for doing this kind of homework, and I need to make sure that if I'm going to start writing this paper, I need to do it early enough so that I can do all the portions in different days rather than try to all cram it into at the end. Once you know when things are due at your school, create a rhythm and a plan each week for doing your homework, and then stick with that throughout. Having that rhythm will help you to manage the workload and make sure that you get everything done without waiting till the last minute or getting surprised by deadlines. Here's a great piece of advice from Professor Alex, who actually used to be one of my students. He said, at least on bigger assignments that you're not excited about, do a small chunk of them each day until they're due. That way, you start early, get rid of some anxiety, and know you're only working on one chunk that day and not the whole thing. One of the worst things is when you feel overwhelmed and you're like, rather than deal with this, I'm just going to procrastinate. And then that giant paper, you do all of it on the very last day, you get a bad grade, you're stressed out, you don't like it, you don't have fun, and it's just not a good time. If you've got a big assignment, a big essay, a lot of reading, a big test to study for, it is worth your time to split that into smaller chunks. You'll do better and you'll enjoy it a lot more. Sometimes life just gets you and you are late on some of your homework. I've had students who that happened to them. They were late on one assignment, and instead of trying to catch up, they just kept being late on every assignment for the rest of the course, which cost them a lot of points and kept them from even dreaming of getting an A. I've even had students who were late on the first assignment, and they just kind of gave up. They were like, oh, if I can't be perfect, then I guess it's just over. And they just failed the course. Guys, don't let being late ruin your semester. Just ask for an extension. Most professors are more than happy to work with you and to help you get back on track. When you ask, be clear on which assignment, how many days you need the extension for, and make sure that you're asking for the extension before the deadline. This will show the professor that you are thinking ahead and that he or she can trust you to follow through on this. Dr. Bill says, try to establish and maintain a semester-long dialogue with your instructor and, if possible, at least 2 other students in the course. And Dr. Bill is actually one of the professors who taught me, so I can promise you his advice is worth gold. And he's totally right. If you can build a relationship with your professor, that is worth so much. With 20 plus students in the class, your professor's probably not going to reach out to you. But if you send him or her a quick email, tell them a little bit about yourself, tell them a little bit, of something that you're excited for in the course, comment on something from their bio, and ask a really good question or two about the course content, that professor's going to respect you and they are going to remember you. I'm not going to say they're going to grade you easier, but I remember when one of my professors said, Cliff, you speak up in class a lot. You really contribute to the discussion, and I take care of students who contribute to the discussion. As an online professor who sometimes gets burnt out because most of what we do is just grading papers, it really sticks out when a student sends an email that is interested in us and in the subject that we're teaching about. Especially because most of the emails we get are just people complaining about their grades. Most online courses have like an introduction discussion board. Look through what everybody else has said, find 2 people who seem interesting, shoot them an email, and start a conversation with them. You might end up being able to help each other with homework, work on group projects together, and who knows, maybe you'll be in like another class with each other in the future. Making friends is one of the best things you can do in college. My final piece of advice for you guys is don't worry about the grades. It took a bachelor's, master's, and PhD for me to learn this, but what is the point of college? Is it a nice big shiny A? No, it is to learn and to get a degree. Sure, an A or a 4.0 is a nice shiny little trophy to affirm us as the geniuses that we are, but you know who people think is smarter than somebody who had a 4.0 in college? The people who actually learned something. If you spend less time stressing about A's, you'll have more time to read an extra book on the subject, watch a documentary, have a call with your professor and ask questions about the subject that made you curious. You might actually grow as a person, but if your only goal is A's, then you're really missing out. Plus, you're also going to be way stressed out, especially if you get like a grade that you don't like. It's going to just ruin your whole day and you'll be sad and you'll be thinking about that and you might get bitter and then you might send me a nasty email saying,
Hey, why did I get this grade? I deserve better than this.
and I'm going to think to myself, wow, this person is not here to learn. So do good work, but focus on learning rather than stressing out about something that really doesn't matter. I hope that these have been helpful. If you have questions about which college to pick, which major to pick, or how to get it done quickly and inexpensively so you can build a career that you love, my link is down below. I would be happy to set you up with a consultation. I wish you all the best and happy hacking.